Welcome back to my channel. It is Candace with a K here, where I normally talk books, beauty, and kicks. Today we are talking about a book. If you know me personally, you know I'm a Real Housewives fan, especially the Real Housewives of Atlanta. So it was imperative that I read this book. It is Porsha Williams' Pursuit of Porsha. Okay, I had to read it. I had to see what was going on. And so in this review, I'm going to give you all the tea that she spills in her book, and we're going to talk about it. So if you are interested, please keep watching. The Pursuit of Porsha is actually a very quick read. I don't know why, but I kind of expected the book to be just a little bit longer, maybe a little bit more fleshed out. But what we get is kind of a behind the scenes look at who Porsha Williams is. So when we first met Porsha, we met her as this doe-eyed housewife who was so serious about her marriage to Cordell Stewart that she was very much prim, proper, tried to fit the role of being a wife. And what we saw over time is that Porsha really morphed into this character that was kind of like full of life, but also who just was, she was an it girl, or is an it girl. Like, Porsha is an it girl. And so her introduction to us and who we come to know as Porsha Williams are two completely different people. So I appreciate that this book is really on her finding herself, hence the title Pursuit of Porsha. Where the book begins is kind of with her upbringing of being the granddaughter of this civil rights activist, being around her mother who was a single mother, having to split homes between her mother and father because things didn't work out. And so anybody who watches the show knows that her sister Lauren is not her full sister, but her half sister, being that they share the same father, not the same mother. And so we kind of understand that dynamic. And then we also learn about, her having to lose her father at what is fairly a young age, being a teenager. Porsha reveals to us as the reader that her relationship with her father kind of molded her view on relationships. She was seeing her father be a cheater and just automatically assumed that this is what it entailed. And so she tells us that she had to keep her father's secrets. She was the one who was seeing him have a wife, but also seeing him have a girlfriend. And in her pursuit of finding herself, this is kind of the situation that ultimately left her feeling the same way in her own relationships. A lot of the discussion in this book is around men, which I sometimes find problem with, because we shouldn't always have to rely on our romantic partnerships to find ourselves. But in this case, she is situating it in the sense that this role model and her first love of, the first man that she loved influenced how she was able to move with her other relationships. What was really sad, there are a lot of sad moments in this book, not gonna lie. Porsha, what we see on the outside is definitely, she wears it well, because you would not think that what she has been through is the truth. Not to say it's a lie, but she doesn't show what she's been through. So she reveals in her book that her father would lock her and her brother up in bedrooms and bathrooms, and she would just automatically assume that that was okay. And she says, my father would lock me and my brothers in bathrooms and bedrooms, the laundry room, and the basement when we were acting out or making too much noise. The doors were never actually locked, but we understood our punishment was that we could not leave. One by one, we were placed in separate rooms. That is so crazy to me. I understand punishment, kind of, to a certain extent, but to be placed in a situation where you feel like you can't leave because you'll get reprimanded, mind-boggling. Because the situation with her father was so tenuous and kind of volatile in a sense, it influenced, like I said, her relationships with other people. So she ended up in a lot of abusive situations. not necessarily physical, well, some very physical, some emotional, some very mental. So she kind of chronicles that. Pretty much the major relationships in this book that she discussed were all abusive to some nature. So she talks about being with one person who took her on this like fairy tale date that where she thought she was going to get proposed to, and that didn't happen. And then he ends up sexually assaulting her. Hearing her retell and recount that experience was a lot. It was kind of like, oh my gosh, because here you are with somebody that you are romantically involved with anyway, and for them to feel like they could just take something from you is crazy. As any viewer of the show knows, that Porsha has had her issues with fertility, largely in part due to her thyroid. So she reveals how she was pregnant by one of her previous boyfriends who didn't share any enthusiasm or care for her pregnancy. And I couldn't imagine going through that either. Once again, you're romantically involved with somebody, and then they don't care that we are creating life together. In no way, shape, or form am I for motherhood, but I could see that somebody who feels as though their purpose is to be a mother, that would be kind of traumatizing. Also revealed in the book, which I don't know if I've ever heard her publicly talk about this, but she got caught up with R. Kelly. And what? So there's a chapter in the book where she's talking about how she thought she was going to have this blossoming singing career. And anybody who has seen Real Housewives of Atlanta knows that Porsha can at least hold a tune, but I wouldn't call her a singer. And she met R. Kelly's assistant, road dog, manager, whatever, and he invited her out to Chicago. And she ended up being in the house and was in the studio. Then R. Kelly sent her to the room, and she was just in the room, and she had sex with R. Kelly. And then she became one of the girls, and she's recounting her experience as that. And I just was not expecting that. And I don't know if I somehow overlooked that or just didn't know that existed, but what? And even more so, she had to threaten to call the cops to get out of there. So she talks about how she told R. Kelly that she was like 24, 26 or something. And he was like, oh, let's pretend you were younger than that. Because he probably assumed she was much younger, which disgusting. And she had to, like, she became one of those girls. She explains how she was in the room feeling as though she couldn't come out, which I'm sure triggered those same emotions that she was having as a child from being locked in rooms, to then not being able to actually express yourself and saying like, what? I couldn't imagine. We've all seen the Surviving R. Kelly, and we know how traumatic those experiences have been for that woman, but it never crossed my mind that Porsha was also one of them. In the book, she also chronicles her experience with Cordell Stewart. So when we first met Porsha, we being the broader audience of the Bravo celebrities, she was married to Cordell. This is this ex-football player. She's the new housewife. He's, lacing her with a Chanel bag. She talks about all that. But behind the scenes of all that, Cordell was the controlling, possessive person that we as viewers all saw that I guess she didn't see. I don't know. She talks about how she was given an allowance where she was only getting $1,500 per week. Like, what? She was talking about how it got to a point where he wasn't coming home. She had thriving businesses in Atlanta. She followed after her mother, who had a 24-hour daycare, which great business model in Atlanta because you have so many nightlife employed people there that a 24-hour daycare is actually genius. But Porsha herself had a daycare, which after she married Cordell, he made her sell it. He was trying to make her get rid of her condo, which is like, in my eyes, to give up something for a relationship is never worth it. To give up any part of yourself for anything if you're gonna be with me and we're gonna be together, you got to meet me where I am and elevate me. Don't try and break me down. And that is clearly what Cordell was doing, and it was working, because Porsha was just in such a slump. Like, and she says in this book she was forever faithful to him. There were the rumors swirling that Cordell was gay, which I guess somehow affected his football career. I don't know, but he started to internalize the fact that Porsha became a household name and he became just Porsha's husband, which is another thing. A lot of men can't handle a baddie when a baddie comes around, and that is the signs right there. Also learning that after their divorce, which she had to find out on Twitter, after their divorce, she was technically homeless. And so all the while she's filming Real Housewives of Atlanta. So she was living at home, which we see on Atlanta. We see her move to her mom's house. But beyond even that, her mom ended up losing her house as they were filming. And she said she was coming up with all kinds of excuses of like, no, we can't film at my mom's house. We'll film out in public, because they were at the time staying in a hotel because she was waiting for that Bravo check to be deposited. And as I was reading that, it's clear that social media, stuff on TV is all smoke and mirrors. Nothing is real, because no one would have ever thought that. No one would have ever looked at Porsha on your TV screen every Sunday night and thought that woman was homeless, but she was. And I think crazy. In Porsha's pursuits of finding herself, she does talk about how she met Dennis and how Dennis was, you know, the perfect man for her and somebody that she's really thankful for to have been the father of her child, which I can see that and I agree with that. Dennis seems to be a great father. As I'm just watching it on TV, I think that they still love each other, and I would not be surprised if they get back together later on in life, because there's still some unresolved things there. I don't care what they say or who they're with currently, they still love each other and they'll probably get back together. But because that's just what it is. She also talks about her social activism. So of course, being the granddaughter of a civil rights leader, it's innate in her to want to be active in the social movements of today. And so she kind of talks about and chronicles those experiences of being arrested and fighting for Breonna Taylor and fighting, marching after George Floyd, and just using her platform for the greater good. So overall, I did only give this book 3 stars because I thought it was short and it's very surface level information about Porsha. I think being that she is a TV personality, we have a good grasp of who she is. As I'm talking about it, I'm realizing that she did shed a lot of light on things that we don't really know about her, specifically her upbringing and some of the reasons why I could see why her reactions on TV are the way they are, because she has come from very volatile situations where I could see that her fight or flight has been ignited multiple times. I think this is enough of us to understand and appreciate her for being on our screen for all those years. I love Porsha. It's hard to stand for her after this last series that she had where she was fighting with Dennis and Dennis's mom, but I still do love her. I love her personality. I think she's hilarious. And I loved seeing the evolution of her on television. So I actually like that she titled it The Pursuit of Porsha, because she had to kind of evolve to become the woman that she is today. If you have read the book, what are your thoughts on the book? It is linked down below in the description box so you can get your copy, or if you have a library card, you could get it from your local library. And I want you to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and be sure to see me in my next one. Thank you.